This is a story about someone who says that their grandmother had an encounter with Mami Wata. I am back with another spooky story. So the person says that their grandmother grew up in Puerto Rico in the town of Lajas. If you know Lajas, it is quite a watery town because of the Caribbean Sea. So we're gonna call the person who submitted the story Siri. So Siri's grandmother was a very spiritual person, very much in tune with her spiritual side. So she would always honor her ancestors and give thanks to the water, like the ocean. And she would tell Siri that that's how things have always been for generations. People honoring their ancestors through the water. One day, Siri's grandmother went to the ocean to give thanks to the water as per usual. She got there and took everything out that she needed to honor and to offer the mother of the seas, Mami Wata. Now, the grandmother says that she usually goes there around 5-6 a.m. when the tides are usually high, because she says that's when the water spirits, aka Mami Wata, were highly active. So that day, the grandmother went, she was doing her work, chanting, beating her drums, and that's when the tides got a little bit wild. Wilder than usual. And she took it as a sign that Mami Wata was listening. So she continued until she was done, and then she went home. Later that night, her grandmother had a very interesting dream. So the grandmother had a dream whereby she was on shore doing all her thing. That's when the grandmother looks over to the side and sees that there was a woman standing there staring at her. She says, in the dream, the lady held a gold mirror on her right hand, and she wore what looked like a white dress embedded with white cowrie shells all over it, and it seemed like she was murmuring something, but her grandmother couldn't make out what she was saying. After that, grandmother wakes up. The next day, she goes to the ocean to do what she normally does. However, that day, the grandmother felt the urge to get into the water. But like not too deep, just like 10 to 20 meters into the water. So instead of her doing her chant on shore, she decided to take it to the water. So her grandmother does just that. Once her grandmother steps into the water, the grandmother felt like she stepped on something. Something like jewelry. So the grandmother reached into the water and picked up ikiki beads. I'm not sure what that is. And the grandmother looked at the beads and threw them back in the water, because the grandmother knows the rules. Never take from the water, but always receive from the water. So after that, the grandmother stepped out and packed her things. And that's when she felt like someone was watching her. And she looks over to her left, and y'all, just like in the dream, she saw the lady with the gold mirror, white dress embedded with the cowrie shells, and the lady came straight up to her and gave her the ikiki beads, or ikeke, I'm not sure how you pronounce that word. The same beads that her grandmother just threw back into the ocean. The grandmother goes on and says, the lady then gave her a gold pendulum embedded with aquamarine crystal and a bracelet made of cowrie shells. Wow, she comes bearing gifts. And Siri's grandmother looks at this lady. She just accepts the gifts and tells her, thank you. And as the grandmother is getting ready to leave, she then catches a glimpse of this lady walking straight into the sea. And the grandmother just stands there watching the lady just travel through the water. And after a minute or so, at a far distance, she then sees a dolphin. And that's when her grandmother realized that she had just made contact with Mami Wata herself. Now, what are the signs that this was indeed Mami Wata? Well, the ikiki beads, cowrie shells, gold mirror, aquamarine crystals, and the gold jewelry are all associated with the ocean and mermaids. Then the grandmother realized that Mami Wata herself was actually thanking her, because she remembered the first rule of honoring the water. Never take from the water, but receive from the water. That's it. Note, Mami Wata is a water deity. Cowrie shells symbolize wealth, fertility, good luck, and protection. Wow, that one was a good one. Thank you so much for submitting your spooky story. Y'all been bullying me and post a spooky story for like 3 days. Because your girl is getting into the influencer life, I'm getting to do more things like branded events and things like that. But anyway, if you have a spooky story that you would like me to tell, feel free to submit them to me on TikTok or Instagram. Y'all, I'm trying to get to 10,000 followers, so please follow me on Instagram just so that I know that it's real. Please. I'm finding mermaid stories for y'all. Follow me on Instagram. The link is on top of my TikTok page. And make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel for longer, better, and spookier stories. Like I say in every video, I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl. This is a true story, a real-life mermaid encounter. If you don't believe that mermaids are real, maybe you'll change your mind after this video. This is a story submission from Barbados. We're gonna call the person who submitted the story Kira. So Kira, who grew up in Barbados, has always been a big fan of the water. She says that it is something about the water that just calls onto her. She's always felt peace and been able to release her anxiety every time she's by the water. She said that she's always felt like this weird mothering energy every time she's by a body of water. It doesn't necessarily only have to be beaches, it could be lakes, anything. The urge to just jump in the water was just always strong. And obviously, because she lives in the Caribbean, she is a strong swimmer. She never had to learn though. Perhaps it was the fact that she grew up in the Caribbean. She did not know who to tell about these urges that she was feeling in regards to the water. She thought this was normal and that other people experience other feelings too. She thought, well, maybe if I like water, then the next person might like air. Maybe it's about the particular elements. One day, Kira would go on to learn about her infatuation with the water. Kira says she will never forget the day she got her first period. Kira says, I got my period the day after I turned 12. And that would be the day that Kira's life changed forever. On the day after Kira's 12th birthday, the day that she got her period for the first time, she was in bed sleeping, and suddenly she started to feel like her environment was shifting around her. Like she's trying to fall asleep, but she can feel her bed physically rocking. Now she said she was feeling very loopy till she blacked out, probably thinking she went to sleep. Except the next day when Kira woke up, she woke up by this lake that was miles away from her home. Kira is looking around confused. She looks down, she noticed that she is in this white dress and she is soaked. And again, pretty far from home. She has no recollections of the night before, how she even got here, how she even got into this dress, and scary enough, she now has to make her way back home. She makes her way back home, and when she gets to her neighborhood, that's when she notices that people were looking for her. Apparently, her parents had woken up and did not see her. And so they had been looking for this girl since the parents noticed that she wasn't in the room. When people saw her, they felt relief because, we thought you got kidnapped or murdered. She goes to her parents and she tells her parents what happened. Her parents did not believe her, thinking that she was just being mischievous. She probably snuck out and went out with her friends the night before. However, this long white dress that she was in, nobody knew where she got that dress from. They were pretty much just happy that she came back. So everybody went back inside and everybody went about their day. This was particularly hard for Kira, because this is crazy. She tries to move on. The following day she woke up, and this time she woke up by a different body of water. It happened again. Kira says, I can't even begin to describe the horror to you because am I sleepwalking out of the house? So she gets back home and she tells her parents, Mom, I woke up by a different body of water today. They didn't know what to do and they pretty much just told her, pray before you go to sleep. Day 3, it happens again. She woke up near a completely different body of water. And at this point, she's like, nah, something is up. She gets home and her parents are pretty much like, okay, we agree, something is up. But they all thought that maybe she's sleepwalking. So people were saying, well, the best thing that we can do since you're sleepwalking is to barricade the house to make sure you don't escape at night. So that night, her parents barricaded the house. If you're sleepwalking, you wouldn't be able to get out. Day 4, Kira still somehow woke up by a body of water, not in her bed. Kira says that these experiences would go on for a while until she turned 15. And when she turned 15, she said that is when she started to remember. She said for the previous 3 years, she had been in training. And because she wasn't that spiritually inclined, she would forget every time she would meet those spirits. However, after building her tolerance and her spirituality, after 3 years, she was able to wake up and remember what had happened to her. Back when she was 12, the day after her birthday, this gorgeous lady who had this calming energy about her approached the bed. She looks down at Akira, who was falling asleep, picked her up, told her that she was taking her somewhere special to meet some of her family, and that they have all been expecting her. Again, she said she was feeling loopy, and after that, she pretty much blacked out. But she did go on to go under and meet the mermaid spirits. She says that every other time, at least for the first year, that she would wake up next to a different body of water, those were the different places that the Marines would take her to learn about specific spiritual gifts. If you want to learn about healing, that would be on that side of the lake. If you want to hear about the history, then that would be somewhere by the other lake. And because she was picking up different skills, it would explain why she would wake up in different lakes. Now she says that mermaids and mermen do not look like what y'all think they do. Some of them are beautiful, but only beautiful once they leave the water. Because whilst they're in the water, their skin transforms. She also says that there are different colored mermaids that serve different purposes. There are some green ones, some gray ones, some pink ones, even some pale ones, depending on the side of the water that you're in. That their fingernails are long, pointy, and mushy. Their skin feels so mushy that if you touch them, you will leave a dent. People are right about them being half fish and half human. Some of them have a humanoid top, but not a humanoid face. You make of that what you will. Kira says that till this day, mermaids are her best friends and they have actually saved her life and taught her a lot about herself. She says she wouldn't change anything or have her life any other way. She feels like she has a cheat code to life. The end. Thank you guys so much for watching this spooky story. Stay Thank you for submitting your spooky story. If you have a spooky story that you'd like to submit, feel free to send it to me on TikTok or DM me on Instagram. Instagram might allow you to send voice notes. Feel free to follow me on YouTube for longer, better, and spookier stories. And my Instagram, obviously, just so that I know that it's real. Duh. We're trying to get to 10K. Like I say in every video, I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl. This man brought his mother to his girlfriend so they can unalive her together. I am back with another spooky story. So we're gonna call the person who submitted the story Sue. This is the story of how Sue's grandmother, her father's mother, did black magic on her family. So her mom and dad met in their early 20s and they were in love. They did everything together. After about 2 years, Sue's father introduced the mom to his parents, and that being the first time Sue's mother met Sue's grandmother. Well, when Sue's mother got there to meet her boyfriend's mom, the mom didn't seem too thrilled to meet her. She just seemed like, well, okay, nice to meet you, real dismissive. However, Sue's dad was really excited to meet her. Years later went by. Grandmother started getting suspicious, like, why is Sue's mother still around? Like, how is my son still dating this woman? Sue's grandmother genuinely thought that her son and this lady's relationship was just a phase. It was confusing to her, but you know, she didn't pay it no mind because they weren't officially married nor were they living together. But the grandmother still decided to keep an eye open on that relationship. So now it's been 4 years and her son has been happily in love. And that pissed her off. She decided to tamper with Sue's parents' relationship by talking shit about the mother to the father and basically telling him to leave her. And the dad, being a good son, took the mother's concerns into consideration. Sue's dad, being a good son, still took his mother's, concerns into consideration, but he didn't cut off his relationship with Sue's mother. The more they stayed together, the longer they stayed together, Sue's grandmother got progressively angrier. It got to a point where she didn't even want to see Sue's mother's face. So time went by. Sue's parents not only got engaged but found out that they were expecting a child. So the dad is excited that he's gonna be a father, so he tells, his father, and then he tells his mother. Sue's grandfather was excited. He hugged them, said congratulations. The grandmother, however, she showed her ass. Because after he told her, she sat there with the most evilest look in her eye. Him knowing that his mother wasn't actually a big fan of their relationship, he basically brushed off her reaction and just went on with the night. Later that night, he gets a phone call from his mother saying congratulations, and she apologizes for how she was acting. She tells him that he is going to be an amazing father and that she apologizes for her actions earlier that day. Then she proceeds to notify Sue's father that she would be leaving town for a couple of weeks. This is important. Sue's father thought nothing of it because his mom often took trips back and forth to Jamaica to visit family, but mainly to visit her sister. Oh, they're Jamaican. Okay. So a month passed and he knew his mother would have definitely been back home. So he contacted her and she claimed that her sister was sick and that she couldn't leave until her sister was better. Sue's dad wished him the best and went on with his life. Sue's father didn't hear from his mother for 3 months. Again, this is also important because let's just say, while away in Jamaica, Sue's grandmother was busy. So after 3 months passed, Sue's dad got concerned, called his father and asked about his mom. The dad reassured him that, his mom is fine. She's back in Jamaica. Everything's gonna be cool. And basically, she's been moody and you know how she gets. She needs her personal time. Growing up, the grandmother always did need her personal time. So Sue's dad was like, all right, makes sense. Months passed and Sue's mother gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Now, mind you, when Sue was younger, her grandmother never wanted to take care of her. Her grandmother was never involved or had any dealings with her, period. So just keep that in mind. So her parents winded up getting married and 3 years later, their relationship got really rocky. Sue's dad claims that they were arguing all the time and behaving way out of the norm. They suspected since they were still newlyweds, maybe that's why. That wasn't the case. So years passed. Now Sue is 7 years old. And to everyone's surprise, her grandmother got her a Christmas present. A doll. Well, her grandmother cursed the doll, and Sue could never sleep and felt at ease around this doll. The doll sat right across her room in front of her bed, and she was horrified. After she told her mom about this creepy doll, the mom basically prayed over it and discarded of it. After they got rid of the doll, things seemed like they were settling down a little, but the mom and the father's arguments were still going. Sue's mother got fed up and contacted her mother. Well, her mother told her that her mother-in-law has actually cursed her and her daughter, Sue. The mother-in-law put a curse on the family. The mother-in-law was so mad that their relationship was thriving that she decided that she had to take matters into her own hands. So she went back to Jamaica and had multiple family members perform a ritual with her, cursing Sue and her mother. She not only wanted her son's relationship to fail, but she wanted to be the only special woman in her son's life, and cursed that her mother and Sue would never be able to find true love. So Sue's dad, finding out about all of this, what does he do? Well, he soon after disowned his mother and profusely apologizes to Sue's mother. He said that he was willing to do anything to make it up to her. And you know, Sue's mother was pissed. Like, your mother tried to curse me and my daughter. Sue's mother told her husband, Sue's dad, that in order to make up for this, that he has to bring her the ultimate sacrifice. And Sue's dad was willing to do anything for his wife. So later that evening, he returned home and said, honey, for you. Sue's mother asks, well, what did you bring me? With an attitude. Sue's father brings his mother outside, and to her delight, she smiles and jumps on her dad with joy. Well, her dad had bought her the ultimate sacrifice. Sue's dad bought his own mother as a sacrifice, as an offering to show his loyalty to his wife. If he wanted to, he would. They performed a ritual and sacrificed her body. The curse that was on the family was lifted. Until this day, Sue's parents are still happily married. And now Sue herself is happily married. This story was told to Sue by her mother and father. This one was a long one, and I put it all in one part. I thought this story was a really good story. This is a different level of loyalty we're talking about. I don't even know what to say, so y'all better leave mad comments because I'm gonna be reading all y'all comments. This story was crazy. Anyway, if you're not already, make sure you follow me on Instagram just so that I know that it's real. The link is on the top of my page. And my YouTube channel for better, longer, and spookier stories. The link is also on top of my page. As I say in every video, I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl. When they say it be your own man's, it be your own man's. I am back with another spooky story, and this time Zimbabwe has entered the chat. We're gonna call the person who submitted the story P. So P is from a family of 6. 3 girls, 1 boy, plus their parents. However, one of P's brothers unfortunately passed away at the age of 9, 1 year before P was born. And P was born in 2001. P winded up losing her father just 3 years after being born. And here's the background story to help you see what may have happened to her father. P said before his death, a lot of weird things happened. P's parents at the time lived in a small village that is just 10 kilometers away from a town in Harare. Sorry if I butchered that. So in most village houses, they have toilets like outside the house. So P's mother and elder sister went outside to pee, and it was night. So while P's mother was peeing, she was facing the house while her sister was facing the trees behind the mother. So while her mom is doing her business, she's startled because she hears her sister scream. So her mom, being shocked, turns around to see what her sister was screaming at. And when her mother turned back, she then saw a short woman that was dressed like her, same outfit. Outside of them sharing the exact same clothes, there was something even more unsettling about this woman, as she was floating in the air. And as P's mother is staring at her, this thing spits out fire that landed on her back. P's mother was really burned on her back. And P says that till this day, over 20 years later, she still has the blisters which won't pop the water out. Wow. So fast forward later, 3 years before her father's death, so right around the time that P would have been born, her middle sister woke up so that she can make tea for the family. When she was on her way to the kitchen, she then saw a pool of fresh blood on the veranda. This is shocking, cause what? The father then cleaned up the blood without praying. And then 3 days later, the same thing happened, but the blood this time was inside of one of the pots. And more things just kept happening. Like every morning when they woke up, they would find shit in their yard. But when the sun rises, it would melt. The shit would melt into oil. Wild. P says that a few weeks after this, her father then got a stroke. But he survived the stroke. But during that time, P's father got really sick. One night, he was taken to a hospital in Harare, and P's mother had a dream of 2 women in the family laughing at P's mother, saying, "Now your life has turned sour." So one of the women in the dream was their neighbor. She was their uncle's wife. So remember that. So when her mom woke up from that dream, her father was just shaking profusely in the hospital bed. And unfortunately, that was the end of him. After his death, everyone in the family on the father's side hated P's mother. So her mom, her 2 sisters, and P had to relocate. They then moved to South Africa. At the time, P was just 3 years old, and now she is 22. And P would discover the truth about her father's death 20 years later, when she took a trip to Zimbabwe last year to get her degree in nursing. So around May, P started getting really sick, and none of the medication helped. And that's when they finally got the idea to go see a sangoma, which is a traditional healer. And the sangoma then told them that one of the relatives unalived the father because of jealousy. And you want to know which relative? It was the uncle and his gal. So the uncle was P's father's half-brother, right? Him and his wife had been monitoring their lives. Until this day, everything that they went through was their doing. And the only way that they can be stopped is by unaliving the uncle. And P says, sorry, I forgot to mention that the uncle had a crush on my mom. And he then approached my mom, and I'm guessing he got rejected. And that is where all the witchcraft started. Wow. And I swear that is all that was submitted to me. I don't have no more. Don't barge me about a part 2. There's no part 2 yet. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. In the meantime, be sure to follow me on Instagram. Please, we're trying to get to 10K, please. And my YouTube channel for longer, better, and spookier stories. Like I say in every video, I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl. Do you believe that mermaids are real? And would you believe me if I told you that many people have had encounters with them? I haven't done a mermaid story in my page in so long, but I am back with another spooky story. We're gonna call the person who submitted the story Rosie. So Rosie is from South Africa in a small town called Sakane on East Rand of Johannesburg. So as a kid, Rosie always had this feeling that she was born to bring about change. Like, this feeling was very strong, and she would tell her family about it, but they would just ignore her. So when Rosie turns about 6 to 7 years old, this is when she started to have these weird dreams, where she would have dreams about mermaids, and she would tell her grandmother, but her grandmother would ignore her. The dreams about mermaids would come every 2 weeks. So now fast forward to Rosie being 10. That's when she started to feel drawn to the water. She felt this pull as if she was being called to the water. And again, she would tell her grandmother, and her grandmother would ignore her. The grandmother would tell her, honey, it's just a feeling, it'll go away. But Rosie just lived with this feeling for a while. Fast forward again, now Rosie is 13 years old. And at that age, that's when Rosie entered high school, and she said that is when her life took a crazy spiritual turn. Once Rosie entered high school, she started experiencing something that she hadn't experienced before. The first day, she's hearing singing. So she looks over and asks her friend, like, hey, are you hearing this too? And her friend responded in a very exaggerated no. So she just brushed it off and said, maybe I'm just hearing things. She really didn't harp on that too much. Like, it's not a big of a deal that she heard singing and her friend didn't hear it. Now fast forward a couple of days, it happened again. The singing did happen again, but this time, her and her friend heard it. And it was literally coming from the direction of the dam. Mind you, the dam is 30 feet away from their lunch table, so it's relatively close. So as they're hearing this singing, something weird started to happen. Rosie says she can't even explain what the hell happened, but both ladies got up and just started walking towards the dam. No, they were not in control of that. And both ladies couldn't stop walking towards the dam. It is as though they were being drugged or something. They were so fogged mentally. Rosie recalls feeling like they were high as fuck. So they got close enough to the dam, and they were about 6 to 8 feet away from the dam. Rosie now starts kneeling on the grass, again, against her will, and began to sing along to the song that the marine slash mermaid spirit was singing. And mind you, Rosie didn't even know the song, let alone the language that these spirits were singing in. However, she kneeled and just joined the interaction, as if she knew the language, as if she sung it before, as if she knew the song. When suddenly, they snap out of it. Rosie looks over at her friend, and her friend is staring at her with this unsettling look of awe in her face. Now Rosie's looking over at her like, dude, what's up? And her friend looks at her and says, I heard something ask me, why am I here? Now Rosie knew her bestie, so she could tell she was sure about what she heard. And the friend goes on to ask Rosie if she heard it too. And Rosie just says no. Mind you, even though they snapped out of the trance that they were in, they still were feeling pretty high from whatever was in the air. But Rosie looks at her friend and says, we should go. Now Rosie starts to feel like there's something heavy in the air. So as they start to walk away, the friend says, stop, look at that grape tree in the middle of the dam. And she was like, I want some of those grapes. And Rosie says, trust me, I tried to stop her from jumping in, but she just jumped right in. So her friend just jumped into this dam. And Rosie, being so damn scared, doesn't know what to do. Her friend just jumped in this dam, so she decided that monkey see, monkey do. She gonna jump in too. Rosie would jump off a cliff if her friend did it. Rosie Rosie says, I was so damn scared, but I just jumped in too so that I can save her. She saw the grape tree in the dam as well. However, her intuition was telling her that this wasn't a real tree. Luckily enough, she pulled her friend out of the water, and that's when she came to her senses. That's when the friend asked, what just happened? What is going on? And Rosie just told her, we have to go. They ran their asses out of there, and once they reached the schoolyard, that's when Rosie broke down everything to the friend. Even though Rosie broke out of her trance, she was just feeling high, her friend was still in it. Pretty much, Rosie's now catching her up on what happened once they reached the schoolyard. Rosie had enough for that day and said, let's go home. And oh my god. As they were about to leave school premises, this beautiful lady comes up to them, and mind you, everybody at the school was already gone by that time. Like, there was no teacher, no scholar, and only one security guard. So this gorgeous lady approaches them. She looks straight at Rosie with the most intense look. Rosie says she's never had anybody stare at her like that before. It felt like this lady was looking into her soul. Rosie describes this lady to have light hazel eyes. She had a lot of gold jewelry on, gold earring, gold necklace, and she had blue nails done. I'm telling you, this lady's presence made everything cold around us. It was a very sunny day, about 35 degrees Celsius. For the normal people, that's 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was 95 degrees outside. That lady's presence was so cold, Rosie had goosebumps, chicken skin all over her body. After that encounter, the lady turned around and walked straight in the direction of the dam. As you can see, this story is already 5 minutes long. So I'm recording the part 2 right now, but I'm gonna drop it the second that this video hits 10,000 views. And I'm doing it like that because I'm shadow banned on TikTok. So you guys, please go ahead, leave a comment, share this video, just so that it can get boosted. And as soon as it hits 10K, I promise you, I will drop the part 2. In the meantime, make sure you're following me on Instagram. It's Rebecca_Journey, just so that I know that it's real. And also follow me on YouTube for longer, better, and spookier stories. Do you believe that mermaids exist? Well, this is a real-life mermaid encounter submitted from Sekane, South Africa. Part 2. So after the friend sees this grape tree and just jumps into the dam, Rosie jumps in after her to go rescue her. Now, the friend still being in a trance, once they get back to campus, Rosie catches her up on everything that they just went through. When this beautiful, gorgeous lady with all this gold jewelry walks up to them, doesn't say anything, but just stares at Rosie. And it's a very powerful stare, as Rosie felt like she was looking straight into her soul. Something about this woman made this 95-degree day feel cold. Anyway, after she gets done staring at Rosie, she just turns around and walks straight in the direction of the dam. So Rosie and her friend, they just went home and just straight up never talked about what happened that day. That is until Rosie's spiritual calling demanded her to act and take work of being a healer. And that's when she found out that she should have never went into that dam with her best friend. However, if she didn't save her friend, she would have been dead because that calling was not meant for the friend. The calling was meant for Rosie. And Rosie only. Them some exclusive mermaids. So Rosie was meant to go there alone so she can interact with the marine spirits herself. So Rosie said that she would go on to have so many more experiences and dreams as she woke up to her gifts eventually. And I'm hoping that she will share more of those stories. That was really the end of part 2, y'all. She didn't give any more detail. Now I apologize for being late with this part 2. Yesterday after I posted, I went out and I forgot about y'all. And then I got home, fell asleep, woke up, fell asleep again. And now, you know, you guys have it. If you have a spooky story or a dark and mysterious story or something unexplained that you've experienced and you want to tell me about it, feel free to DM me on Instagram or right here on TikTok. I pick out the best and tell them. This one is yet another submission from South Africa. I am back with another spooky story. We'll call the person who submitted the story Cody. So Cody just got off the phone with his cousin, who's more like an aunt because she's just that much older. Anyways, so just last week, a neighbor's 5-year-old son was struck by a car and unfortunately he passed away. It was his funeral on Wednesday. Now listen to this. So the man who ran the boy over kept on saying that he never saw a boy on the road. All he saw were 2 large birds on the street. And he thought they would fly by the time he got close enough. And he only stopped because of the sound of the impact. Once again, thinking that these 2 birds were gonna fly by the time he got close. After he realized he hit what, he thought were 2 birds, he got out of his car to check. To his surprise, there lay a child in the middle of the road. Obviously, this is shocking and difficult to hear and almost like avoiding accountability. So you're pretty much telling me you're confused my 5-year-old son for 2 birds? I'm not buying it. As ridiculous as that sounds, you would experience something even more ridiculous. Because days leading to his funeral, the boy has been returning home. After daycare, religiously, the boy would return home and they'd hear him humming his favorite song. At night, they would hear him hum again. Which is interesting because at his funeral, 2 youngsters collapsed when they did the viewing. Out of nowhere, mysteriously, they just collapsed. One of them claimed she saw a large bird-like creature in the coffin and not the boy. Anyway, so fast forward to now. Now fast forward to now, as in January 26 at 9:50 a.m. when the story was submitted. So earlier that day, because it was a Sunday and there are church-going people, his Sunday school teacher visited the family about an incident that happened earlier that day. Sunday teacher is in to do his thing. As he gets the choir going, they heard him leading his favorite song. And once everyone joined in, there was an echo of his laughter. Now here's the thing. Where he stayed at, that's the exact same house where the exact same thing happened years ago. This isn't the first. Previously, a young child about the age of 5 or 6, same thing happened. He wandered on the road. Driver did not see a child, saw an animal of some sort, and to his surprise, turns out it was a kid. So the first family, eventually they moved out and sold the house. So when this family moved in and the same thing happened, however, they came to understand. Keep in mind, both kids that were struck in the same spot. So, to everyone's understanding, that neighbor whose house was in front of that spot was collecting children's spirits from the street, as it happened right outside their yard. That one was spooky. One thing about South Africa, they're gonna spook you out. This is a love spell gone wrong. Since it is February, the month of love, I feel like this is an appropriate time. I am back with another spooky story. And this one is a submission from Jamaica. We're gonna call the person who submitted the story Drake. Now, Drake says that he knew this girl. We're gonna call this girl Lucy. Drake knew Lucy since they were young. They went to elementary together. Eventually, when they got older to about 15, 16, they started developing feelings for each other and eventually started dating. At first, they pretty much kept things on the low because they were young. But eventually, since they were always together, literally ever since they were kids, now that they're a little bit older and they're still tied to the hip, people around them naturally had questions like, okay, are you guys dating? Like, what is going on? By the time they were 17, about to be 18, people already knew about the status of their relationship. Now, Andre says that they had a pretty normal relationship. Backstory about Lucy. Again, he knew Lucy since they were kids. Lucy's entire family, as far as he's concerned, since Lucy's parents were friends with Drake's parents, Lucy's parents were religious. Now, Drake's parents were also religious with a twist, meaning that Drake's parents were spiritually inclined, meaning that they would have dreams, visions, and Drake's parents' visions were always scarily accurate. Whatever it is that they saw, it would happen. So Drake himself, he goes to church here and there. Lucy, as far as he's concerned, also goes to church. Pretty much, they spent their teenagehood together. They winded up having a kid and they moved in together. Now, this is when Drake says that their relationship took a turn. After they moved in together, after their first kid, maybe a year after that, the relationship took a turn for the worse. They weren't communicating as well, and it really seems like the love was fading. Drake felt like every day that went by, he was losing patience for his girlfriend. She wanted to get married, and Drake was a lot more hesitant. Drake said that Lucy always believed that he had other women. She would always do sneaky things in attempt to prove that he was cheating. Every argument, here she went with the cheating allegation. Drake said eventually he got tired of being bargered. He felt like his back was being pushed against the wall and that pretty much his only option was to cheat because he was already being accused of cheating. Guess when you hear the same thing over and over again, you start to believe it. Drake said at that point, he started seeing other women. He says he wasn't hooking up with them. He was just seeing them. Lucy catches wind and she's pissed. Now she has concrete evidence. She confronts him about it. They break up. Now Drake says that now Tina is the love of his life. He recognizes that. They have been together since they were 15 and they knew each other before that since they were childhood friends. So the relationship ending, Drake didn't take it well. This was his person and he just wanted her back. So he did everything in his power to go and win Lucy back. Although it took a while, Lucy did forgive him. And for the sake of their kid, they winded up getting back together to try to make things work. Now, Drake has denied cheating on Lucy before that point. Before, when Lucy was accusing him, before she officially caught wind, he claimed to not have been cheating. He claimed that the cheating only came about because Lucy was barging him about it. This is important, keep that in mind. Now they get back together because this was his first and only offense. Now he gets his gal back. Drake starts proving himself again and things are going great for a while. And according to Drake, out of nowhere, here comes Lucy again with the cheating allegation. You're cheating on me. And Drake, again, he can't take it. One thing about Drake, every time you accuse him of something, he's gonna prove you right. Because he cheated again. But this time, he knew he messed up. Because he hooked up with her cousin. You fucking dope. So Drake says that he has to come clean, obviously, before the cousin comes clean because he would rather her find out from him. He claims that a couple days later, he tells her, according to Drake, the cousin was the one... Well, she threw herself at him and he was too weak. Men, 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 menly men, 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 menly men, men, men. Aha, men. Lucy once again leaves him. She hates this and she says this time she's done. She took their kid and says at this point it's over. It's really now hitting Drake that he really did mess up. So he did something out of character. His mother knew a guy and Drake went to the guy and the guy asked Drake for her underwear and he provided that and he put a love spell on Lucy. Now sure enough, a few days later he shows up at Lucy's place, profusely apologizing. He comes with flowers and Lucy doesn't seem mad. She seems sad. They talk about everything. They agreed that they missed each other and they got back together. Drake says that there's no way he would mess up this Chan. Almost lost the love of his life and he just got her back. Once again, things were going great for a while. And things are still going kind of great as they are still together till this day. They are in their 30s. Drake says he minimizes how often he sees other women. The accusations don't stop. However, she won't leave him. Every once in a while, she does get angry. Sometimes it's to his detriment, as Lucy has recently become very violent in their relationship. Physically violent. She's beating his ass. He now doesn't know how much more of this that he can take. Because the last time, she threw at him. So, thank you for submitting that story, Drake. If you have a spooky story that you want me to tell, please just submit them to me via DM, either TikTok or Instagram. I'm still doing spooky confessions, so if you have a confession that you want to get off your chest, you can DM that to me as well. Don't do love spells on people. Don't cheat on people. I don't know what the lesson here is. I'm telling y'all what not to do, and then I keep getting submissions like these. You're gonna do what you wanna do. Anyway, I love you guys, my abducted. These Tokoloshi stories genuinely send chills down my spine. I am back with another spooky story, and I don't know if you want to watch this one at night. They captioned the story, "The Ex-Stepmom from Hell." We'll call the person who submitted the story Sandy. So Sandy said that her dad and this woman broke up late 2021 because she loved to dabble in dark magic. And her family just simply does not vibe with that. They don't fuck with that shit. And mind you, she was about to get married into the family when the father found out. A full halt, no wedding. So in 2022 January, Sandy was excited to go back to university as she spent the entire break at home. Until one night, she was sleeping soundly and she had to wake up to go use the bathroom. And keep in mind, she woke up at exactly 3 a.m. So as she's making her way out of bed, she can hear this male voice repeating this phrase in this language that she does not understand. And this voice is repeating this thing over and over and over again, almost like a prayer or a spell. At first, Sandy didn't pay attention to it because she lives in a public area where there's a lot of pubs and clubs, so she just assumed that maybe somebody was outside just fooling around. She goes to the bathroom, does what she has to do, and on her way back to her room, she feels this sharp pain in her abdomen. On the way back to her room, she feels this sharp pain in her abdomen. It's like nothing she's ever felt before. It was so intense that she instantly fell to the floor. She couldn't even make it to her bed, that she started crawling to her grandmother's room door. And she is fighting for her life on that floor, crawling to her grandmother's door. She finally gets to the door and she's just knocking furiously, like open this door, trying to wake her grandmother up, because keep in mind, it's 3 a.m. When she finally opened the door, she described to her grandmother what type of pain she was experiencing. And her grandmother didn't know what to do until she told her that there was someone outside her window chanting something. Her grandmother eventually helped her, but she has never seen her grandmother so worried before. The pain calmed down and finally Sandy was able to go back to bed. All of this happened in 10 minutes, but it felt like forever. So later that day, they went to go see a traditional healer that told them, remember the stepmother from hell? Yeah, after the breakup, she got busy. The Sangoma said that the dad's ex sent a tokoloshi to try to off Sandy just to cause the father pain. And it didn't work because she woke up to use the bathroom. But instead, the tokoloshi left something in her womb to prevent her from having children when she gets older. She was only 20 when this happened. So to solve this, the healer gave her a few bottles of a concoction to drink, mixed herbs, and muthi. Muti, I don't know if I know I'm butchering that. So she's able to flush out whatever is in her womb. She struggled to sleep at night for a few weeks, and she said she will never forget the face of her father's ex-girlfriend when she drove to pick up her brother from her place. She was looking as though she saw a ghost, because she was supposed to be a ghost. Thank you for the submission. If you have a spooky story or a spooky confession that you want me to tell, please feel free to DM it to me either on Instagram or on my TikTok. This is my Instagram and my YouTube that just reached 40K today. Yeah. You should be one of the subscribers. So everything is linked at the top of my page. So you better follow me on Instagram and on YouTube as well. Like I say in every video, I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl. This story was one of the most interesting but worst love stories I've ever told on my page. So buckle up because I am back with another spooky story. And this one is a submission from Bahamas. We're gonna call the person who submitted the story Shan. So Shan says that she has a spooky story that happened in the Bahamas when she was 15. So she used to date this guy from when she was 15 till about 25. So 10 years. Shan says she was madly in love with him, or so she thought, because of how obsessed she was with this guy. It wasn't until she graduated high school in 2012 and she moved in with the guy in his family home that she noticed that something was really wrong. One day he came home with this beautiful gold bracelet with diamonds all around it. Shin could tell it was real, so she asked him, "Where did you get this expensive bracelet from?" Knowing he wasn't really working at the time, "Where did you get this?" And he pretty much said that he was working with his homeboy and someone had left it in the car seat of the rental, and so he just took it. He pretty much took it and now he wants to gift it to her. Shan believed him, not thinking much of it, accepted the beautiful bracelet. And when she started wearing it, a lot of people would ask her, "Where did you get this vintage bracelet from? This is one of a kind, it's expensive. This is so vintage, they don't even make those anymore. The last time those were around was in the 50s. And an old woman had randomly told her this. Again, not thinking much of this because her man, just got her something unique. And now it's been a few months of them living together. A few months had passed and Shan said that he would beat her constantly and also cheat constantly. On some occasions, this didn't just happen once, she would pop up at the crib and find unclothed women with her man. They would see her and they would just run out the house. And Shan said through all of this, through the abuse and the cheating, she still stayed. Shan said at times when she didn't have a job, she would sit in his room and don't eat or bathe until he comes home, and she didn't know why. It was like she was a zombie at this point. So one day she woke up and said a prayer, and something told her to look in the mirror. And she heard a voice that said, "Fight it. It's not you." And she started crying, saying, "What is happening to me?" She is unrecognizable to herself. And then within a second of doing that, boom, she snapped back into zombie mode. Shan said she would only stay inside cleaning, cooking, and catering for him and his family. So now years had passed. And at this point, Shan started visiting her family again. Because at this point, they were worried about her. Because during the time that she was with him, she wasn't talking to her family and she wasn't seeing her family. So she said one day she had ran into one of her female friends who had invited her over to her house for dinner. Her friend's mom came to her while she was going to the bathroom and said that something very dark is following you and it's on you. She said, "I can see it," as she's smiling, and then told her to stop wearing open-toe shoes or slippers everywhere she goes. For a while, she was told not to wear open-toe shoes wherever she's walking. So the friend's mom told her that she's gonna relay some information to her daughter, and come midnight when her daughter gets off of work, call her daughter and her daughter will basically let her know what she needs to do. So she gets back home and doesn't mention anything to her boyfriend. So the following day, she went back to the friend's mom to directly ask her, like, what is on me? Because she was confused, she was lost. The mom, not really saying much, just gave her a remedy to cleanse herself. So the mom said to go into the sea every day at noon, midday, when the tide turns, and wash her coochie with 21 pieces of lemon and to hold each piece. And when she comes out of the water, never look back because you do not want to see what is coming off of you. To throw the lime pieces back into the water so that they could float away. Shan says, "I can't tell you how many days I've done this for, but what she can say is that on the last day of doing this, the sea got so rough. And she was rubbing the last 2 or 3 pieces down there. It was like the water was alive, like the water had a mind of its own. The water turned Shan every which way but loose. She was scared as hell, so she hurries up and does the last piece, stands up and walks towards shore. She gets to shore, looks down at her hands and counts the pieces of lemon that she had. And to her horror, she was only holding 20 pieces of lemon, which is one off because it was 21 pieces of lemon. I'm not telling the full story. The full story is available on my YouTube channel. This one is a really, really, really long story. So if you want the better, longer, spookier version of this story, you better go ahead and follow me on, well, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It is literally this video on my page. I was getting a lymphatic massage while I was telling the story. So you better go and find my YouTube channel. The link is on top of my page and I tell the full story on there. So no, there will not be a part 2. Go find the full story on YouTube. And I'll give you a nugget. The story starts 15 minutes through the video. Oh, and so I am back with more spooky confessions. We've decided that we're gonna call this series We Listen and We Don't Judge Confessions. Because someone says, I have to confess this. One time my stepfather upset me and I used his toothbrush to clean the toilet. That's disgusting. Someone says, I have sex dreams about my cousin all the time and I kind of like it. What do you mean you kind of like it? Somebody says, I'm a demon and I know this because I dream of home, hell, and Father Lucifer always gives me instructions, who, by the way, is misunderstood and not evil. Is the devil evil? I'm gonna make a video about that. Thank you for the submission. Somebody says, I am no longer attracted to my girlfriend. Okay. Somebody says, I found out that my mom's boyfriend was cheating on her and now I get monthly payments from him not to snitch. I fear you may have no concept of loyalty because, wow, that's your mom's, bro. I get that you're getting paid off, but like, somebody says, I have a cousin husband. What's with all the ancestry? Like, he's my cousin, but he won't fuck me. But like, if he wanted to, I would. And I'm the most important shorty in his life. At least he won't do it. Somebody said, I hooked up with a white man during Black History Month. Oh my God. We're down bad. During Black History Month, though, you couldn't hold out. Let's move on. Somebody said, honestly, I just be lying. I lied to my friends about the death of my sister. I don't have a sister. There's more. But my friends came together and helped me raise money for the funeral. I took their money and crashed someone else's funeral and took videos and acted like it was my sister's. I had to take it that far because they gave me money. So you just like casually scammed your friends? The way this started, like, honestly, I'd just be lying. Like, were you trying to purposely scam them, or was this just another lie that just worked out really well? Somebody asked me, my boyfriend likes it when I strap him. Is he gay? I don't think so. He's just a little freaky. Grandma not gay. Grandma freaky. I think that's all we're gonna do for today. I need to save some for the next video. If you have a confession that you want to get off your chest, please feel free to DM me either on Instagram or TikTok. These are funny as fuck. This one was definitely a dark and mysterious one. Imagine your neighbor unalives your child and you can't prove it. I am back with another spooky story. So we'll call the person who submitted the story Kayla. So Kayla grew up in a very small community in Polokwane, South Africa. Sorry if I butchered that. So in the community, everyone always had the same mentality of it takes a village to raise a child mentality, until everyone was forced to live differently after what had happened. So Kayla was actually one of 4 siblings. However, she was the only one that was raised by her grandmother. Now, her grandmother had a friend down the street who we'll call Koki. Koki had 2 adult children, but one had passed away, the son. And it was rumored that she did something to him. People believe that she did something to him just because of how she was acting during his funeral. At his burial, she seemed happy. So later, when Kayla became a teenager, Koki had 2 grandkids who would have sleepovers with other kids in the Kazi, or Kasi if I'm not mistaken, meaning neighborhood. One sad day, Koki's neighbor had to leave town for the weekend, so she asked Koki if she could watch her kids while she's gone. The little girl was described to be cute and pretty chilled for a 6-year-old. So the series of events that followed would leave everyone absolutely confused and horrified. The weekend went by pretty quickly, and Sunday night the parents came back. They tried preparing the little girl for school on Monday. However, when the mother was doing her hair, the little girl kept complaining about a headache. And naturally, the mother thought that her daughter was just exhausted and probably hungry, so she started making her dinner. So she left her daughter in the TV room, walks to the kitchen to prepare dinner. The minute the mother walked back into the TV room, her daughter had already passed. She was not moving, not breathing, just not alive. This perfectly healthy little girl. She was perfectly healthy, fine, kicking, like what happened? So the mother ran outside to ask Koki for help. Koki stares at the mother and told her, the child had been dead for the entire weekend. How are you seeing it so late? And this automatically freaked out the whole neighborhood and anybody who tried to get answers. Because again, this is dark and mysterious. Like this little girl just up and died after she'd been watching her for the weekend. So naturally, everyone wants answers. However, anybody who tried to question Koki, including Kayla's grandmother, would experience their own share of trauma. So after the funeral, Koki came out of her house to sit facing the funeral tent directly. And some of the other ladies seeing her there, including Kayla's grandmother, all had questions. So they all decided to walk up to her and ask her pretty much what happened to the little girl. What is the actual story to what happened? Well, Koki didn't reveal any information at all. The ladies went home thinking it's all done. Well, later that night, Kayla was in her room and they heard a human-like figure walking in their house, but they growled like an angry wild animal. So the next morning, Kayla asked her grandmother if she heard that too. Like, did you hear the footsteps and did you hear the growling? And the grandmother confirmed that she indeed did hear it too. And the grandmother elaborated saying that that was a warning for them to stay out of Koki's business. And ever since then, nobody has mentioned that little girl again. It is like she never existed. Oh, thank you for submitting this spooky story. This person was haunted by a Jinn. I am back with another spooky story. We're gonna call the person who submitted the story Luna. This is the haunting that followed Luna. This happened in 2020, Cape Town, South Africa. Luna was 13 years old, obsessed with horror stories on the internet. One late night around 2 a.m., she was watching a YouTube video by SS Snyder Wolf, where she was reacting to the infamous Dear David story. Halfway through the video, Luna started hearing footsteps in the lounge. Now this was strange because everyone in the house was asleep, so she brushed it off, assuming that it was just her cat, as she had 3 cats anyway. Trying not to think much about it, Luna went to sleep without finishing the video, because honestly she was too afraid. Next night, curiosity though did get the best of Luna, as she wanted to finish that video. But as she was getting into it, similar to the night before, she started hearing the footsteps again. But this time something was different. It went up a notch, as all the containers on the kitchen counters just fell off. It was 3 a.m. Luna was alone, and this time all her cats were with her, so there was no excuse that it could have been the cats. Luna's heart is pounding, she's freaking out, but she forces herself to get up and check the kitchen. When she got to the kitchen, no one was there. She picked up the fallen containers and in a panic, she grabbed salt and threw it everywhere, because she had heard somewhere that salt wards off spirits. The next morning around 8 a.m., Luna's mother notices the salt on the floor and asks who had thrown it. So Luna explained to her mother what had happened. And what the mother showed to her next sent chills down Luna's spine. The salt on the floor, y'all, had completely dissolved. And the mother's telling her with the weather conditions that night, the salt should have never melted. That is physically impossible. But then mother points out something even stranger. There were footprints in the salt and they were facing backwards. So they just cleaned everything up and tried to move on and just pretty much didn't go to that side of the house very often. The haunting continues. The boy with no eyes. The next day, Luna went to her grandmother's house for a family gathering. And that's when she saw him. A small boy standing beside her father. He was dressed in black with pale skin and no eyes. His entire figure looked foggy and almost translucent. She immediately told her father what she saw. However, her father did not believe her, calling her crazy. That same evening, around 8 p.m., her mother was taking a bath when suddenly she felt like someone walked into the bathroom with her. Then out of nowhere, she felt something pull on her underwear. And she turned and the light is dim and she saw it. She ran out that bathroom in terror. The girl in the cupboard. 2 weeks had passed. They told themselves that they were just imagining things and everybody just tried to move on. But Luna still hadn't finished watching that Dear David video. It was around 1 a.m. when she decided to finish it. She was lying on the top bunk of her double bunk bed, focused on the screen, but then from the corner of her eye, she saw something move. A small, ashy-skinned girl with long, tangled hair walked through the wall straight into her mother's cupboards. And the moment she entered, the entire cupboard bust open and all her mother clothes just fell out. Luna is frozen, her fists are clenched, her heart is pounding so loudly she can barely hear her own breath. And an instinct kicked in. As a Muslim, she started to pray. She forced herself to stand up and pick up every single piece of clothing that was on the floor, and she crawled back into bed. She did not finish the video that night. The smack in the dark. The next night at 3 a.m., she finally finished watching the Dear David video. Exactly 5 minutes after watching it, something strange happened. A wave of exhaustion just hit her. It felt unnatural, as if something was forcing her to sleep. So to fight it, she started playing with her eyes, like opening one eye, closing the other one, because she really just did not want to go to sleep. And then she heard it. A loud smacking sound. Before Luna can even react, her face went numb. She had just been slapped. Hard. She touched her cheek. It was red. It was stinging. Looked around. No one else was in the house. She told no one. The Jinn. The next night around 8 p.m., Luna went to bed early. But this time, she wasn't just asleep. She was paralyzed. She could see, she could hear, but she could not move. And then it appeared. A creature looming over Luna. It had the head of a wolf, black and gray fur, and glowing red eyes. Its upper body was human-like, muscular but covered in thick black fur, and its lower half had the legs of a goat. It stared down at Luna with its jagged teeth, and with his hairy-ass human hands, he starts to choke Luna. She can't breathe. She struggled to scream, but nothing came out. It's digging its claws into Luna's skin. At this point, her vision started to blur. Suddenly, just as the creature appeared, it was gone. The cleansing. The cleansing. The next morning, they went straight to an imam. She told him about what she's been experiencing, and he listened carefully and looked at her with very serious eyes and said, "You are being haunted by a jinn." He explained that this entity had been drawn to them because of jealousy from others, and told her to pray over water and drink it to protect herself. They also called another imam to the house who prayed in every corner of the house, chasing away whatever it was taking residence in the house. End of story. That one was a really good one too. If you have a spooky story that you would like me to tell, please feel free to submit them to me either on my TikTok DMs or Instagram. I'm also still doing my spooky confession, so if you have a spooky confession or just something you want to get off your chest, please feel free to inbox it to me. Make it juicy. If you're not already, please make sure you are following me on Instagram. I'm trying to get to 10,000 followers, you know. And of course, subscribing to my YouTube channel for longer, better, and spookier stories. Like I say in every single video, I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl. This is one of those stories that makes me want to ask, is everything okay at home? We're gonna call the person who submitted the story Mia. Mia was born and raised in Nigeria, and she says that from her tribe, they practice a lot of voodoo. And Mia herself also comes from a family of voodoo priestess. Mia states that her family is so powerful, they never needed tools to do magic, nor did they ever need to go to someone else to help them out. If anything, people would always come to Mia's family for help. Mia says that they could put someone under a spell by just speaking. So she winds up moving to America when she was 15. And she says that she still practices her voodoo in the States. So fast forward to Mia being 22. At this point, Mia's in college, and on her way to her college campus, there was a coffee shop. In that coffee shop, there was a white, sexy guy, apparently. We're gonna call the hot, sexy white guy Jake. But Mia was head over heels for Mr. Colonite, Jake. However, Mia felt like Jake never gave her the time of day. Now, she questioned, is it because she's black? Maybe he doesn't like black girls. But after months of going to this coffee shop and trying to get Jake's attention organically, she decided to turn matters into her own hands. Now, she says that she really didn't want to do this, but Jake forced her hand. Mia says, but honestly, when I want something, I gotta have it. Now, Mia has never been luckily in love. All her past flings always ended in disappointment. Mind you, she would even have a few dates here and there. Either every date would fizzle out or it would just end in some sort of like awkward silence. At this point, Mia is desperate for a spark. She did what any self-respecting, hopeless romantic with internet access would do. She turned to witchcraft. She decided to go back to her roots. She says, again, she really wasn't gonna do this to Jake, but this video popped up on her page, reminding her that she has the ability to put people under love spells. That's when it hit her. She says the spell was simple enough. I don't know if I should tell y'all what she did. I ain't gonna tell y'all every detail of this love spell, but I'm gonna read some of it. She says, a red candle, a drop of blood, and the name of the person you desired written on parchment. She says, speak your heart's true wish. State your intentions. After you've done all your work, you've completed your ritual, then let the universe conspire in your favor. Now, before that, Jake had merely acknowledged her existence. That was just a minor detail, because things were about to change. She has the candle in her hand and taking a deep breath. With a deep breath, she whispers into the flame, I wish for Jake to love me deeply, madly, forever. Candle flickered, the parchment turned to ash. The room for a second there smelled like roses. So the next morning, when Mia walks into the cafe, not really knowing what to expect, Jake was already staring at her from the door. It's like he's really staring at her. He goes to her and he's like, Mia. He ran to her and he's like, Mia, you came. He sounds so emotionally invested. Mia's like, I mean, yeah. And before she can even finish her sentence, he got on his knees and said, you are my sun, my moon, my every breath. My soul has waited centuries for you. This guy had turned full on William Shakespeare. And Mia's like, oh, no. So Mia's just nervously laughing, but Jake is dead ass. That day, he followed her home. He was sending her music by the hour. By the end of the day, y'all, this man had carved her name into his arm using a pocket knife. By the end of the week, he had quit his job to devote himself entirely to their love. By the end of the month, he had built a shrine to her in his apartment, completed with candles, love letters, and what was a locket of her hair. And the way that Mia knew about the shrine in his apartment was because Jake became very open about this. Jake was very open about his undying love for her. Well, he posted this. So now at this point, Mia is freaked out. He's frantically looking for some sort of reversal spell. But the deed was already done. He just knew how to put the spell on him. Tried everything. Tried retracing her steps, nothing. Burning sage, nothing. That she even convinced Jake one night to come hang out with her, and she dunked Jake in salt water. He even gave him a firm speech about boundaries. Nothing worked. Jake would just keep popping up. But one night, as she's barricading her door, she heard a knock on the other side. And it was Jake calling out for Mia. Mia, her stomach drops. Like, what the fuck? The dude says, and I quote, "If I can't have you, then I'll just make sure that no one else can." Mia says, my stomach turned to ice. Mia says at this point she grabs her phone getting ready to call help, and one of her ancestors popped up to tell her about herself. Says the air shifted in the room, and she says she can hear it in a whisper, and she just knew it was her ancestor speaking to her, saying, "Is this what you wanted?" She turned around and responded to the figure, her ancestor, and said, "I just wanted Jake to like me. I just wanted someone." And her ancestor says, "Love is never so simple, but you know that, my child." Suddenly, wind started gushing, and just like that, with no trace whatsoever, Jake was gone. Following day, as she was walking to class, she looks in the cafe and Jake was not there. Pretty much she has yet to see Jake after that day. Has no idea what happened to Jake. However, she does have a new love interest. It's the barista that replaced Jake. She has a thing for baristas. Thank you so much for submitting this story. If you have a spooky story that you want me to tell, feel free to either DM me on TikTok or Instagram. And while you're at it, just be sure to follow me on Instagram just so that I know that it's real, duh. And subscribe to my YouTube channel for longer, better, and spookier stories. Like I say in every single video, I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl.